Hey guys, this is Leaf. Today I wanted to show you my Magplar build. Been running it in PvP for a little bit and I really like it. So let's get right into it. 5 Shackle and 5 Julianos are the two 5 pieces, and then we got 2 Scoria. And we're going 5-1-1 heavy with 4 Impen and 5 Sturdy with 1 on the shield. And then all max Magicka glyphs on the body, and then 1 max health on the shield, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then we got 2 regens on the jewelry, all 3 arcane, but infuse might also work here as well, or some other trait that you like on jewelry, and 1 spell damage. And then for the back bar sword and board, on the sword we have increased weapon and spell damage, and for the trait I'd actually go something like defending or infused, maybe powered. I'm not really liking decisive, so I'm probably going to trait change it. And for the front bar, I have a shock glyph, but it doesn't really matter what kind of glyph you have. And then I have Nirnhoned. And it's an Inferno staff right now, but I also switched between that and this lightning staff. And the reason for that is because the Inferno staff, you get the 8% increase to single target abilities, while lightning staff is 8% to AoE. And on this build, we use both, so it kind of depends on which type of damage you want to buff. So that's about it for the sets. And I'm running the Atro, Stage 4 Vamp, and Tri-Stat Food. And I am an Argonian. And I think Argonian's probably the best race for this build. The potion passive is really good, and having that max health on Argonian is, having that max health on Magplar I think is really strong, and I'll get to why in a little bit. And then the healing passive as well. And you get a little bit of max Magicka. And for skills, we have Extended Ritual, and this is kind of a necessity on Magplar. You especially want this morph so it cleanses 5 harmful effects. Total Dark, and this is technically the only CC on this build, but it's not even really a CC, but it's really good. And if you run into groups of people who don't know how it works, it's basically like free kills. What happens is when you put Total Dark on someone, every time that they deal damage to you, you also deal damage to them. And you also heal for a ton. And I've gotten heals upwards of 8.2k. And I'm guessing you could probably push 9, 10k if you really wanted to. So this is a really good ability, and I think it's way better than Unstable Core because of that heal. Then Channeled Focus, this you want to keep up 100% of the time on Magplar. That Magicka that you get from this is insane. Misform for Stam Sustain and for repositioning, just staying alive, that kind of thing. Then Honor the Dead for our heal. And we got Bats, and the reason why I run Bats is because it's one of the only ways that you can go offense and defense at the same time on a Magplar. And that's kind of the problem with Magplars right now, or it's been the problem with Magplars for as long as I can remember, is that it's really hard to go offense and defense at the same time, and this ultimate allows you to do that. And then front bar, Radiant Oppression, and this skill is actually finally worth putting on your bar now because they buffed a little bit this patch, and it's actually pretty good. And you could use the other morph too if you want the heal, but I like the damage one more. One thing you have to keep in mind with this skill is if you're fighting a good player or a tanky player or someone just who knows how to stay alive, and you put this on them at 20% or even less than that, don't expect to get a free kill, because players can block and out heal this if they know what they're doing. It's not like Endless Fury where when it goes off, it's basically a guaranteed kill. It just depends on the kind of player that you're fighting. For most of Cyrodiil, when you put it on them at 20-30%, they're going to die, but people who know what they're doing are going to easily out heal it, so you just got to keep in mind about the skill. And then it's also really costly, 4.3k mag. We have Structured Entropy, and the reason why we have Structured Entropy is for that extra health, and it also explains why we have the max health on the back bar, so that we have similar health on both bars. And the reason why I think it's worth doing this instead of degen and just putting a max magic glyph on the shield is because on a Magicka Templar you kind of need to health bar tank. And what I mean by health bar tanking is, since you can't go offense and defense at the same time really, at least when you compare it to other classes, sometimes you just need to go offense and just tank with your health without having really, other than maybe your buffs, you're basically just sitting there with your health and you're just trying to deal damage. And since you can't block while channeling, you don't really have any good hots, you just need that max health so that people can't just insta-kill you as soon as you go on the offense. If we were sitting at 25k health, as soon as you start jabbing, your chances of just instantly blowing up are really high. So having that extra health really, really helps. And then Ellie Drain, and I kind of flex around with the spot. Sometimes I have Ellie Drain here, other times I have some other skills, but what I like about Ellie Drain is that Major Breach, which allows you to do way more damage to people, especially since we're in heavy. You don't get the light armor, penetration passive, concentration. And also the Minor Magicka Steel is really good for the sustain. So you want to keep up your dot, reflective light, on whoever you have on with Ellie Drain. Puncturing sweeps, everyone knows the skill. Just jab, 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 jab. Not really much to it really. Just remember that you can't really spam this skill because it does cost a little bit. And then reflective light. I actually switch between the morphs. Sometimes I use Vamp Pain, sometimes I use reflective light. It kind of depends, but I really like reflective light open world because let's say you're in a 1v3 and you're using Vamp Bane, you literally have to put Vamp Bane on every single person if you want the dot taken out on them. While with reflective light you can just cast it once. And if you're trying to aim for one specific person, chances are if they're all balled up, it's really hard to hit that one person. So being able to press it and hit all three is just really nice. But if you're gonna do 1v1s or you just prefer the duration of Vamp Bane, then go Vamp Bane. And you also get Major Prophecy when you activate this skill, so that in itself is why I run the skill as well. The dot's really strong, but Major Prophecy is amazing. And with Major Prophecy, we're sitting at almost 40% crit in heavy armor. And then Soul Salt for the front bar ult. What's nice about this ult is that you can't be stunned while you're casting it. So let's say you're low on stam, but you have the ult up and you're okay with health, then you can just cast it just to get some stam regen and maybe to get a kill. Honestly, chances are if you're putting this on someone, 50% of Cyrodiil will die, because that's just the kind of players that you usually fight. But if you don't like Soul Salt because you feel like, oh, I'm just going to die as soon as I cast it, then I'd recommend maybe Dawnbreaker Smiting. I sometimes use this ability, but I kind of like Soul Salt more. The problem with Magplar is we really don't have any good burst ults. I tried testing with Radial Sweep and I don't know, I didn't like it at all. But other than that, I'm not a big Meteor fan either, but if you like Meteor you could use that. But yeah, Templar ults are just not very good for burst. And if you want to change some skills around, some of the skills that I recommend are, let's see, Repentance. And also when you slot this skill, you get a little bit more recovery, 10% for health, stam, and magicka. I like this skill, but at the same time, I don't really think you need it, especially if you're playing an Argonian, because your stam sustain is pretty good with that potion passive. So I usually don't run it. I usually use Ellie Drain. But some other good skills are Spear. I'd actually use the other morph. This one, the extra damage you get is just so tiny that it's not really worth using this morph. I'd go the other morph. So if you're running with a friend, if you're running with someone else who's using the same build as you, then you could just keep giving each other resources, and then you could theoretically infa sustain. Or if you're just playing in a group and your friends want more resources, then this is good as well. But keep in mind, if you do take off a destro skill, you don't get the Ancient Knowledge passive anymore. So you would lose out on the 8%. The other thing is, if you plan on using an AoE ult like Dawnbreaker, it might be better to use a lightning staff so you can get that 8% for AoE. But when I use Soul Assault, I prefer the Inferno staff because of the 8% single target, which it actually really buffs it a lot. If I take the skill off, it goes from 62 to almost 59, which is kind of a big difference. You could also use Focus Charge. The reason why I don't really like this skill is because it's really slow compared to how it used to be, and the damage is not very good. Other than that, you could also use Purifying Light. And if you're in a group, the skill is really good, but I personally don't really like it very much because, let's say, once again, let's say you're in a 1v3. The chances of you being able to put the Purifying Light on someone and do enough damage to where you get a decent tick off of it, then you're fighting players that you would win against anyways, even if you weren't using the skill. I think when I was testing it in duels, I was testing on a Magicka, and when I went full offensive with ulti and everything, the most I could hit on this was like 4.7. So chances are, open world in a 1vx situation, you aren't going to get this to hit very hard, which is why I don't really think it's worth it. Chances are, if you just jabbed them one extra time instead of applying Purifying Light, you would have done more damage. But if you're in a group, it can be really good, especially against tanky people. If you want to focus one guy, then you put the Purifying Light on him, and your teammates can focus them, and it'll hit really hard. And I believe the skill scales off of max Magicka. I could be wrong, but I think the more max Magicka you have, the more maximum copy damage you can put on someone. And that's about it for skills. Just make sure you have, all the passives. Especially Combat Frenzy, generate 20 ultimate when you kill someone. That's really what I like about Soul Assault, is it's really cheap, especially with Combat Frenzy. You get it up really fast in fights. That's about it for passives and skills. Let's go into stats real quick. So fully buffed up on back bar, without defending on the sword, we got 29k spell resist, 26k physical, and almost 25 crit resist. But chances are you're probably not going to be standing in this rune very much in a fight. Maybe like 30% of the time you're standing in the rune. So outside the rune we're sitting at 26.5, 23.5. And that's on the back bar. On the front bar it's going to be a little bit less. But once again, if you have defending on the sword, it'll be more. And then for max Magicka we got 37.2. 28.4 health front bar. Back bar it's a little bit less, 28.1. Stam is 16.9, and this, I really like this amount of stam. I think it's perfect. It really allows me to block a ton on back bar, and I never really feel like I have stam issues as an Argonian, especially. So I think that's the perfect amount for me, but if that's too much for you, drop it down. If that's too little, pump it up. Spell damage 21-23 without entropy or any glyphs active, and the crit is 29.3, but in a fight it's going to get up to 39.3, I believe. About 40%. Magic recovery is 1578, stam 771, but if you put on repentance, you get up to 1699 Magicka and 835 stamina. But I prefer Ellie Drain. And that's about it for stats. For CP, I have 40 into Warlord, 3 in Sprinter, 27 Mooncalf, 75 Arcanist, 23 Tenacity, 20 Tumbling, 72 Shadow Ward, 66 Elfborn, 49 Ellie Expert, 19 Spell Erosion. You might want to put more into Spell Erosion, because since we are in heavy armor, we're not getting a ton of spell pen. And then 51 Master at Arms, and 75 Thom. I'm not really sure if I like this amount in Thom, because you get the Exploiter passive with this one, but usually you're not fighting enemies who are off balance, so you're not usually getting that 10%. So I'm thinking about taking points out of here and putting them into one of these other stars. I don't really think it's worth putting points into Blessed unless you are planning to build more tanky and more healing oriented. One passive you really want to look out for is Vengeance. When you block 3 spells within 10 seconds of each other, your next Magicka ability used within 5 seconds will always be to critical strike. This passive is amazing, outnumbered. When you're on your back bar and you're blocking, which chances are you will be, I'm almost always blocking on my back bar, and you're getting hit by, I don't know, 2 to 5 people, your honors will crit almost every single time. Almost every single time. Because of this passive. So, just keep that in mind because it's really good. And then 72 Ironclad, 68 Resistant. I put a lot of points in here since I'm running a lot of Sturdy. So if you weren't running that many Sturdy, you wouldn't really need as many into Resistant. 34 Thick-Skinned, 43 Hardy, 43 Ally Defender. You guys might think this is too much in Thick-Skinned, but I don't know. This star scales really well, and when you're outnumbered, you can't just be spamming Purifies, and let's be honest, one Purify never purifies everything off of you. So, I really like having that much into Hardy, or sorry, not Hardy, Thick-Skinned. So that's about it for the build. For playing it open world, I guess my major pointers would be always keep channel focus up, and try to keep Ellie Drain and Reflective or Vamp Bane up as much as you can, so you can get that minor Magicka steal. And just make sure that when you do go on the offensive with jabs, that your health is at a decent amount so that if you get bursted down, you're not going to die. Because you're not a Magicka DK, you can't perma-block, you're not a Stam Tune that can roll in Vigor, you're not a shield stacker, you just got a health bar tank. But when you're on your back bar, you should almost always be blocking. And as soon as your Stam gets to a point where you can no longer CC break, then you should be misforming. Because all it takes is one CC and you're dead. One Rune Cage, one Fossilize, one Fear, and you're dead. And make sure you're using potions, especially if you're an Argonian. I prefer Tri-Stat, Health Magicka Stam, because they just help so much in a fight. And as an Argonian, as soon as you use a potion, it's like you're resetting the fight completely. And I guess one other thing is when you're using Eclipse, if you're, let's say there's 4 guys on you and you're repositioning or something, putting Eclipse on them will allow you to get those heals from Total Dark. So it's almost like you have a Vigor up. So if you put Eclipse on the right people and they have, I don't know, Volatile up, or they have they're attacking you and they're not breaking the Eclipse CC, then you're getting a ton of heals, and you can even go on the offensive with that. And you're getting heals to the point where you can just jab spam. So that's more for the defensive. For the offensive side of things, as soon as you start doing your rotation, or maybe like midway through, put the Eclipse up so that they either have to break it and then you can do damage while they're breaking it, like a normal CC, or they cannot attack you, because if they do, they'll do damage to themselves. And honestly, a ton of people don't understand this skill. A ton of people won't break it, they'll just keep attacking you, especially those bow snipers. And the tooltip is 7.8 on back bar unbuffed. So I've seen this thing hit so hard. I've seen it hit up to 7k, which is insane. And another cool thing about this skill is if you keep it on your back bar like I do, and you're, healing up and whatnot, and say you have a stamina tune meleeing you a ton, you just put the skill on them, and then they either have to break it, which relieves pressure off of you, or they heal you while they're hitting you. So that's about it for the build. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, and if I did, I will try to leave a comment or mention it. But that's about it. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you guys think.